My channel usually talks about Netflix Narnia updates, but here I want to talk about Christopher Nolan, and particularly the philosophy of Christopher Nolan. Now, I've watched a lot of his films recently, and, I absolutely love him, but I want to point out, Nolan works in a cycle. He has 3 messages that he has told. Many people think, many people would think of it, he has multiple messages. No, there's only 3, because he has 3 stories which are trilogy. What I like to call the Knowledge Trilogy, that's the one recently, the Man's Life Trilogy, and the Moral Ethics Trilogy. And the Moral Ethics Trilogy, that's the Dark Knight Trilogy, where we go through the morals of a man who's, his ethics are not so much. He's emotionally traumatized from his parents' murder, and he wants his revenge, and it's this trying to find happiness, and it's a man trying to find happiness, and a man trying to deal with all this trauma of losing his parents, and seeking revenge. And at the very end, when Michael Caine, Alfred says, "I finally saw you, and you were happy," and that's really the basics of the Dark Knight Trilogy. There's political philosophy and all that, and I really want to talk about the second one, A Man's Life. Now, Inception, Interstellar, and Dunkirk have so much in common because they are about the man. They're about the man Christopher Nolan himself. We deal with a father who has recently lost his wife and can't get over that, and is stuck into this dream mentality and wishes to go back to his children, but he can't. He can't even look into their faces. But in the very end, he is able to come out of that dream and take care of them and finally be the father that Robert Fisher's character, father, couldn't. His father couldn't be. Now we go into Interstellar. Now we have an older man. His children are older, but he's ambitious now, and he wants to go into astronaut only to find that he wastes time, literally and figuratively, in this Interstellar, only to find his children are grown, and he's no longer that. And finally, at the end of Interstellar, he says, "I want to know where we are now." And in Dunkirk, Dunkirk, most people think it deals with the young soldiers, but really it deals with the young men, the older men. It really deals with the older men, because it is 3 older men, Sir Kenneth Branagh and Sir Mark Rylance, who really tell the story. It's really about, they've been through, they know what these young men are going through. They know but it's about a humble young man, a humble older man, who has been through life. We've seen him in all these movies. We've seen him in Inception. We've seen him in Interstellar. He's been through life, and he's able to help them and sacrifice his own life to give these young men a chance. And those 3 movies are the Man trilogy, the good man. What is a good man? And that's what really the trilogies deal with, and we deal with those in the trilogy. And then he started a new trilogy. Dunkirk was the end of that trilogy, and then we started the idea of Knowledge Trilogy. And this is where we go into Tenet. This is why the lighting and composer, this is why it's different. It's more grittier than the other ones. And what we deal with in Tenet is we deal with a side character, Andrei Satir, who was once a very good man, a very nice man, but once he found the knowledge of Tenet, became a very evil and manipulative man who wanted everything and almost thought of himself as God. And we see that in his past, goes down to his fall. But in the very end, he learns that he created Tenet. He now has Tenet, and he says, "I am the protagonist." And then it cuts off his face, and then we move on to Oppenheimer. And Oppenheimer begins the way it ended. And it basically deals with, okay, we saw what the side character did with knowledge. Now, what am I going to do with knowledge? What am I going to do with this certain knowledge that man should not have? And in Tenet, we use a fictionalized sense of this, while with Oppenheimer, we use a realistic sense, the atomic bomb, which, when Lord of the Rings come out, many people compared it to the Ring. And so it's very interesting. This is a great way to use of power. That's what it represents, power. Tenet and atomic bomb represent power. And so it goes in that in the message, it's not all men are like this. Not all men give in to temptation. There are good men out there. And Oppenheimer was one of them. Oppenheimer, he was immoral, he was a womanizer, but he had moral ethics. He knew right from wrong. He knew it was wrong to drop this bomb, and this is what the story deals with. And because of doing this good thing, he is punished for it. The government punishes him for it. And we see this in the very end. Albert Einstein tells him, says, after you've been punished, you'll be punished for a long time and deal with your consequences. But then they'll reward you. You'll be rewarded. But you have to deal with the consequences first. And that's how it goes off. And now we're going to Odyssey, which, as we all know, is about consequences. And we'll deal with some power, the gods, the Greek gods' power. And so we're looking forward to, because Odyssey is the final installment. It is the final act in this knowledge trilogy. Something to think about, because then we go to the fourth trilogy. If he wants to do another trilogy, if he wants to do another message, which I think he does, because he's been offered James Bond 100% creative control. So I really think we're going to go into some more moral ethics. Power was one. I think he really wanted to discover the idea of power in James Bond. But I think since he's already went through that, we're going to go on to a different subject. Maybe go for revenge again. We know Thunderball and Never Say Again, they dealt with revenge. But you know, that's something to think about. And Nolan's messages, they aren't just multiple messages. They are 3 messages. But they're split up into 3 parts. They have 3 acts in them. And 3 movies are these 3 acts. That's why they got so much all different movies. Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk have so much different tone than Tenet, Oppenheimer, and then maybe New Odyssey. And so that's something to think about, and let me know what you think. Thank you for listening.